one. And we are recording with Jim Kunstler and Tom Luongo on Friday, January 6th, 2023 at 2:23 p.m. Eastern Time for Insurrection Cast. Dave's not here. If people haven't heard, Dave was shot dead on the steps of the Capitol trying to reignite the best day of his life, and we mourn his loss terribly. But Jim, why are you laughing?
Poor fellow.
Yes,
Poor fellow.
He ran up the steps like Rocky, but he was carrying an American flag, and he was shot dead by the Capitol Police. And I'll miss Dave, but I think what he did was wrong.
At least he didn't impale himself on the flag.
That we don't know yet. They shut down all the security cameras and sealed it away for another. What do you think
he
about
shot
that?
and he impaled himself.
He shot, impaled himself.
And impaled himself like that guy who worked for the Clinton Foundation who committed suicide by hanging himself and with a shotgun blast to his chest.
Oh, yeah.
So which did he do first?
Weren't there also two nail gun taps to the back of the head?
No, I didn't hear that.
Well, one of the Clinton deaths was shot twice in the back of the head, zipped up in a duffel bag. It was
a suicide, you mean?
Yeah, it was a suicide with a double tap with a nail gun to the back of the head.
With a nail gun.
Yeah.
Christ almighty.
Which, I mean, now I've run a nail gun before, and double tapping with a nail gun is not that hard, but it's a lot harder than
Would that kill you?
Those when you're doing it to yourself,
the medulla oblongata, I think it would probably get her done.
I think if you got it get right at the base of
the brainstem,
that would get you. But I don't think anywhere else would. I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer would, when his victims are incapacitated or unconscious, he would drill into their heads.
Oh, and please, do we have to go there?
Oh yeah, are we doing this today? This is Insurrection Day.
And then he would pour in hydrochloric.
He won't stop.
And then he would pour in hydrochloric acid.
Lovely, thank you.
And then wait for them to wake up, but they didn't really wake up; they were dead.
Is that called the science?
I send my daughter to school every day. Thanks. I need to know that this exists in the world. I'm sorry.
Well, this is what do you want me to not bring it up? Pretend that everything's peachy? Dave's dead on the.
I have been
accused of the
recently of being a Pollyanna, so it's.
Dave is bleeding out on the steps of the Capitol right now, and you are upset that I'm bringing harsh news to this world. Dave is face down. There's a ruby red river dripping down the steps.
Aren't they going to finish him off?
He's dead. What are you talking about? He's done.
Oh, I thought you said he was bleeding out.
They will clean up now. Now, if you want to bring hydrochloric acid into it, that's how they got out the blood stains.
Can you imagine Dave face down in his collared shirt, just the heat leaving his body? Like the thermal cameras are watching him
with the Boston Terriers jumping up and down on rambunctiously on his corpse.
But he's all.
I don't want to think about that.
Well, I don't want him.
I don't want him. I love Dave.
I love Dave too, but what's done is done. It's over.
All right.
Jim's very uncomfortable.
You missed what happened last time after you left.
No, I didn't miss it. My girlfriend pointed it out to me and said, "You should listen to this. It's funny," and it was funny. I didn't mind.
I don't think there was anything wrong with it.
The difference, all right. It was
difference between
besides,
that.
I was the center of attention, of course. So
you were. The difference between that one and this one is
that made up for all of the all the ill feeling and malice.
Yeah, the difference between that one and this one is you're alive to hear it, and Dave's gone.
Today I'm not alive to hear it.
We'll have to project it out through the ether into the afterlife,
wherever Dave is.
Yeah.
What do you think about that though? That they want to seal or not? They want to. I think they successfully voted for it to seal all video camera footage for 50 years.
Well, it occurs to me that they could, it can be unsealed by a legislative vote just as easily as it can be sealed.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, does that not give anyone
So it's just another lame gesture.
Yeah, that's true.
At the end of a very lame exercise in despotic fuckery.
Yeah. But I mean,
there you go.
That gives
despotic fuckery. That's a great term, Jim.
Despotic fuckery. But does that give no one
one writer to another? Yeah, you have to give it up when there's.
But does that it gives no one pause that all that's sealed?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, apparently there hasn't been an uproar about it.
Did what? What'd you say, Jim?
There has not been an uproar about it as far as I can see. Everybody just sort of yawned.
Yeah.
Well,
But
because it's de rigueur at this point that they're going to do this, and the media is not going to say anything because they're in the tank for these people, and it's gonna be what it is, and then we're gonna unseal all the records one day when this is all over and done with. Because look, what's happening on Capitol Hill right now is nothing less than a revolution.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not going to win. They're not going to succeed. Okay, but this is really big. They're gonna fail. Like the swamp will coalesce to protect itself, and that will be what happens. But that's going to feed into a very weak speakership from McCarthy, and he's not going to be in charge for very long anyway. And this is just going to be now a quick succession of badly compromised speakers for the rest of the term, and they're not going to get anything done, which is a good thing. And so I think this is a big moment. I've been waiting for this to see what would happen from the moment the midterm election results came through.
Well, last time I checked, which was about 11:30 this morning, they failed to elect McCarthy in another vote. Has something happened since then?
Well,
has anything changed?
When the last vote came through, 14 people came across, and there were only, I think, 7 or 10 holdouts or whatever. So, so they cut some kind of deal, or they arm twisted a bunch of people, or they captured them, or they kidnapped a bunch of children. How they do. So, I guess they finally mobilized the FBI to go, capture some kids or whatever. I'm not supposed to say this.
Well, shoot this dog if you don't change your vote.
Right. Exactly.
And they're talking about Dave.
Yeah.
She called him running up the front steps. We'll shoot this guy. But
I'd be satisfied as long as some of the right people end up in the right committee chairs, right? And we get some answers to some questions. Personally, I don't expect a whole lot more than that, but I think that would probably be a good start.
It is a good. I agree, Jim. It is a good start, but I think the hour is late, and Sauron's forces are already moving, and Gandalf's trapped on the Tower of Orthanc, and I think it's I think we need a little bit more than that if we're actually going to try and save this, or is this just going to be the moment where it's confirmed for us one way or the other that we're headed for the kind of, I hate to say it, the kind of dissolution or breakup or whatever you want to call it, that's now as clear on everybody, as clear as everybody thinks it is. And there are times when you look at stuff like this and you go, we still have a chance to not go there. Are we going to go there? Well, if McCarthy is elected Speaker of the House under these circumstances, we're clearly going to go there, because the people who are holding out represent the people who in this country who are getting fucked. And there's a lot of people who would join these guys if they thought for a moment that they could win, or that the retribution for voting with the losing side wouldn't be biblical. But they know what's going on. You got to think there's at least 100 members of the House that would vote along with these people, if not more, if they weren't rightly, abjectly scared of the consequences of going against the power structure. These guys don't care, because the power structure already tried to get rid of them. They've already tried to get rid of Matt Gaetz. They already tried to get rid of Lauren Boebert. I mean, the GOP worked against Boebert, and she still barely crossed the finish line. So these people have nothing to lose. So why not?
Well, when you say dissolution, do you mean the trend that's now underway among red states to just defy federal law and federal regulations, and just to make their own regulations and just divorce themselves from the?
Yes, I think we're headed for a split, however you want to put it, partitioning, civil war, whatever it's going to be. And that's clearly what our Davos paymasters want. They want it to happen on their terms and on their time frame, as opposed to on our terms and on our time frame. And so
what do you suppose their terms would be?
Excuse me about the dogs in the background. There are people walking in the park, and I can't stop them. And
what do you suppose their terms would be, Tom?
What's that?
The Davos people. What would their terms be?
They want it to happen on their timeline, so that there's the most damage done to the financial structure of the world. Remember, they want to crash the world economy in order to allow Europe to build back first, right? And that's they want this breakup of the US and this paralyzation of the US. And they want these people, they want their pets in Congress to spend as much money as possible to neutralize the Fed tightening dollar markets in order for them to survive. They want to make the case to the world that Europe is more stable than the United States. So to freeze capital there, as opposed to it, leaving, as opposed to it all fleeing here. That's what this is all about. That's why McCarthy hasn't stepped aside. They don't have a plan B for McCarthy within the party at this point, because they know if McCarthy steps down, it only gives more power to the holdouts. And now we'll go from 20 or 25 holdouts to 50 or 60 or 70. I'll bet you something else. The more I think about it now, Matt Gaetz is not fucking around here when he nominated Trump. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember, I called this a year and a half ago or over a year ago, that Trump, almost 2 years ago, that Trump should run for Speaker of the House, that he should get himself back into Congress and then run for Speaker of the House. That's what he should have done.
Yeah, and then if they happen to impeach Joe Biden and get rid of Kamala Harris, then he becomes president.
And he becomes president again, right? But and this was I was like half fucking around when I said this back in right after Biden took the Oval Office. But I'm like, no, this is exactly the right path for him strategically, is what he should do. Be a thorn in everybody's side, be in Congress, saying his stupid shit, being Donald Trump, but learning the rules and the procedures of the House so that, him and his staff know how to run the House, and then he runs for Speaker, and then he fucks everybody over. And it would be hilarious, but he's not strategically savvy, Trump. That said, I think that there's a little smoke there, because Robert Barnes was talking about this a couple of weeks ago, that Trump was now open to the idea of becoming Speaker. And now Rich Barris is talking about it, and some of the other guys and all these strategists. I'm like, Roy, you're about 2 years late to the party, dude. They should have been getting Trump involved in this process earlier. But I don't think that's not for nothing that Gaetz went ahead and tried the Trump tactic here, because if he holds out, it's likely that there's at least that 100 members of the House who would vote for Trump if they thought they could make it work. But but clearly the establishment still has a lot of power left. Now I don't know if it's gonna if that's not going to fail, if that's not going to eventually falter. But if they've got these 14 people, today, and they're able to hold them, then the momentum of this phase of the revolution will flame out. McCarthy will become Speaker, but he'll be terminally compromised, and then the next 2 years will be an even bigger shit show, which is good. It should be this way. Shouldn't be this ossified.
And I must say a couple of things.
They're all in basically each other's cult. Sorry, go ahead, Jim.
We got to remind the listeners that you don't have to be a member of Congress to be elected Speaker of the House.
No, anybody here can be. Any of us can be Speaker.
Have you volunteered?
I'm not as such, but I've mentioned it enough times.
Are you available?
I'd be Speaker if somebody wanted to make me Speaker. It'd be great. If Matt Gaetz wanted to call me up and say, would you take the job? I'm like, heck yeah, dude. I know the basics of Robert's Rules of Order. I know it better than Trump does. I've actually run meetings.
I'd do it.
The other thing I don't quite get is how anybody expects Europe to, quote, build back better after they've gone medieval and gotten rid of their industry and have the prospect of not having even a reliable electric grid.
Well,
how does that help anybody build it back?
It doesn't. But the thing is, what they're planning for everybody else is worse. Right, because they're doing the same thing here, and Biden and company are doing the same thing here. They're making energy security a thing of the past. They're making food security a thing of the past. They're trying to get us involved in a multi-front war with the Russians and the Chinese, and the Europeans aren't going to fight, but they're going to goad the stupid neocons on Capitol Hill and at Whitehall to finally try and get their rocks off. Like, that's what they're doing. That's what's going on. It's like, oh, no, don't fight over Russia. Well, fight over Russia, but we don't really want you to. But yeah, we really do. Like, so freaking obvious.
I had a thought about the
neocons are just commie useful idiots.
I had a thought about the WEF the other day when some news item came over the internet that said the WEF would be holding its annual meeting at Davos between January 23rd and 27th or something like that. And I thought, wow, they're all going to be in one place at the same time.
I know, Putin.
Well,
Dude.
Can somebody send me a sunburn missile, please?
Yeah, it's like Putin. I think Iskander's reached from the Black Sea to Switzerland. And since Switzerland is no longer neutral territory.
Legally, I think I have to insert that this is an entertainment program. I'm pretty sure I have to. I don't know. But Putin, it's
Vlad, just putting it out there. Sorry.
What happened to Tommy's show? Well,
would have been a nice coffee shop.
Would have been a great. This would just be the beginning of the documentary about how did the war to end all wars begin? Well,
Dave Collum,
just an idle remark
charged up the Capitol steps and was killed, and then Putin.
A man named Dave Collum was shot 31 times on the steps of the Capitol Hill. But so the people that have already been kind of fucked by the system, right, who aren't going to vote for McCarthy, are you saying that because I know that his vote count has been decreasing. Are you saying that it's been? I haven't looked at it today. It's increased.
The last thing I saw was that the last vote he was able to get 14 people to turn. So, they made a deal of some kind of deal. I that was the last thing I saw on Zero Hedge or Twitter or whatever, and might have been both.
It is kind of fascinating because you can't do mail-in ballots because it's such a small number of people. It is kind of fascinating to see what are their other tools. What do you think that is? I mean, do you think that's some Epstein Island shit? Do you think it's do you think it's more of a carrot or stick? This is all speculation, but do you think it's promises of the Uniparty and you're going to head up this committee, or do you think it's more of here's a video of you on Epstein's Island with a Girl Scout?
Oh, I think it's fear that the longer this thing goes on, the more it'll hurt the party itself, which I think is a slightly fallacious idea. I don't think it's hurting the party at all. I think it's kind of invigorating it. And in any case, the party needs to get off its ass in some way. If it's going to be some kind of an effective opposition. I never in my life imagined that I was going to be a Republican. And I'm not, I'm not a registered Republican, but they are, after all, the opposition to the woke, Jacobin, tyrannical, idiot leftists who are, now running the regime and running it for whom I'm not altogether sure, but I sure do oppose them. So I want to join an opposition, and I want an effective opposition that's out there, behind me. And that's the Republican Party ain't it right now. So somebody's got to shake them up, and they're doing it.
13th vote just came by at 2:00. They flipped one more. So now there's been 15 holdouts flipped. There are only 6 against him. So supposedly he's gaining momentum, but who knows if he can't flip those last 6 eventually, it's like everything else.
Maybe I'm just they're not mutually exclusive. Maybe I'm just a naive retard, but what are the people who are flipping? What do they think is going to happen? Do they think that all the problems just stop if they give in?
Well, who flipped? It's a really question of, which individuals flipped. And if you know who they are, then, you might have a better idea of why they did it.
What likely happened is that Chip Roy flipped. And since he was one of the main leaders of the opposition, he brought a whole bunch of other people with him. The other people,
he was pretty adamant.
I'm looking at the list, and I don't notice most. I don't recognize most of them. So
I wonder if the plan was that they were always going to flip, but they were holding out to try to weed out who are the revolutionaries.
I doubt it.
I already know.
I think they're just kind of peeling away. It's a typical kind of situation where, there's some people are braver than other people. Some people have less to lose than other people, and they're just kind of chipping away at that gang.
Yeah, well,
and there are an awful lot of people.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jim.
Well, there are a lot of figures like Newt Gingrich who are going on cable TV, deploring what's going on, and kind of implanting the idea that if these people don't come around, they'll be blamed for some catastrophic, death of the Republican Party or something. So,
but the
there's
Republican
that.
Party deserves exactly what's happening to them, because you
Yeah.
know, like what they did. You know, if anybody thinks that there's no freaking consequences for passing an unread $1.7 trillion omnibus spending bill and draping the fucking Ukrainian flag across the freaking rotunda in the House of Representatives wasn't,
Mhm.
you know, a complete slap in the face to the entire fucking country. I'm sorry. And Mitch McConnell said, we had to do it to support what? To support fucking Ukraine? Fuck you, asshole. No one wants any of this shit. Only you do. Fuck you, cocaine Mitch. Like, Jesus Christ, Yertle, get the fuck up your ass. I'm sorry. You're just as fucking corrupt as the rest of them. And that's what's happening today. That's what's going on. And the people and if these people think that winning this battle today is going to win them anything other than a little bit of time, like it's like watching Christine Lagarde at the ECB twist in the wind every freaking day, trying to protect both the euro and credit spreads, and she can't really do either. In the face of improving U.S. economic data, whether it's a false high or not is irrelevant, and everything else that's happening in the world, like, dude, give up already. You're gonna lose. You can't beat the Fed. You can't beat the Russians. You can't beat the Chinese. You can't even beat the fucking Saudis, for Christ's sake. Give it the fuck up and walk away. You can't do that because psychopaths and narcissists don't back down. They double down. This is what we're dealing with.
It is
okay,
kind of
and these people will be giving orders up until the day that they're brought to the freaking firing squad. Did you see the Tulsi Gabbard interview with Tucker Carlson, where Carlson was talking about Ceausescu and his wife on the way to the firing squad? It's like Tucker Carlson was like, I watched this when it was happening, in this clip of Ceausescu and his wife still giving orders to the men who are about to shoot them.
Wait, when was this? What is this?
They couldn't fathom the idea that they weren't still in charge.
You know,
that's
just
the
as
solipsism is that complete.
That's
these people.
Unpopular take. That's not an admirable trait, to just be so obsessed with winning,
right?
Or be a psychopath and be so detached that you just go down swinging. I'm just putting that. I'm not saying I support them, but
right. I mean, there's a survival. There's a species survival trait in there somewhere, obviously, or it would have already been weeded out of the population.
Yeah, well, it's done the exact opposite. It's risen to the highest levels of power and financial and military control in the world. It's done the exact opposite of been weeded out.
Right.
So, like, well, another aspect of this is that they're along the whole path of this uproar. There's never really been any other credible figure who was going to run against Kevin McCarthy.
Right.
Nobody really stood up, and some of the most likely characters just said, well, we're not interested in being speaker. We just want to oppose him. So, it wasn't like a nominating convention. It wasn't like the convention that nominated Jack Kennedy against Lyndon Johnson, where they were both candidates and they were vying for a prize. There wasn't anybody else vying for the prize in this situation.
I agree. A guy like Thomas Massey, who has seniority and credibility and everything else, this is where guys like prove to me that they're not just navel gazing fucking libertarian shitbags. Like, either you stand up and you lead or you don't. I have this, if anybody should criticize, the libertarian movement in this country, it's me, because I'm like Mr. fucking Libertarian, and I look at this shit and I go, well, so what are you doing about it? Nothing. You're just doing the same shit you've been doing for the last 25 years. I got news for you. Everybody's tired of you. The hour is late. Sauron's forces are moving, and you're still arguing about private roads. What the fuck's wrong with you? Like,
well,
this
listen,
is when you step up and you lead, and this is when you step up and tell people that you have freaking solutions. And Matt Gaetz has done it, and Lauren Boebert's done it, and I think they deserve a lot of freaking credit.
Assuming that this thing is going to end, whether it's on the 14th ballot or the 114th ballot, Do you suppose that McCarthy is going to really be constrained to do some of the things that the Republican rebellion wants him to do?
I think that the way this process works, and someone can in the comments or however can correct me if I'm wrong, but in order for McCarthy to secure the votes, if he signs an agreement as to what the rules are going to be in these concessions, and they have an actual honest to God signed deal, then he has to abide by it. So single motion to vacate, blah, 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 all those things that they asked for that he's already caved on. Yeah. Then he has to actually implement. And if he doesn't implement them, Katie bar the door. There's like half these people aren't even going to show up to fucking Congress. And now what do you got? And then there'll become a point but there won't even be a quorum for him to actually.
Well, now the question will be, who in the background, if we get to the point where he is elected speaker finally,
right?
And a number of people are actually quite dissatisfied with him. Will there be some movement in the background to replace him, with somebody who really is willing to step forward and not necessarily do it in the center ring with a spotlight on him, which is the case now. It's a kind of desperation hour, and people don't want to do that. But is there going to be some kind of an organized rebellion, in the background when this is over?
I certainly hope so. I don't have a good answer. I don't have a good feel for that. But I would think that if they get 90% of the concessions that they wanted, while still embarrassing him in the process, then yeah, I think that there's then you finally have what you're talking about. Then you have the possibility of them actually sitting around going, we actually have a lot more power than we think we do. Or that and they can start the process in the committees, in the back rooms, and the deal, and go, look, dudes, he's really weak. You can smell the blood. He's right there. Like two nobodies, like held up friggin' Congress for Congress's business for 5 days. Like, well, what do you say we go to war? Like, what do you got to lose? Because if you don't, because the closer we get to the re-election campaign, remember, it's everybody's safe right now. But the presidential campaign starts in 4 months. Okay.
Oh.
The presidential campaigns start up in June of the year before, like the prime, and we don't have anybody on the Republican side that's quote unquote acceptable. So we're going to have the same open field that we had in 2020 with the Democrats. There can be 14 nobodies up on stage and one person against Donald and one staunch opposition against Donald Trump backed by the regime.
Yeah, I don't quite see it that way.
What do you say?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that Ron DeSantis is being taken seriously. He appears to be actually ramping up an organization in Florida.
I realize that, but it's funny. The more I look at this, if DeSantis is getting good advice, he's not actually running for president, because DeSantis at this point has to realize that, like so many smart people, you're going to go to Washington and get chewed up the same way everybody else did. Your power base is in Florida. You have real power in Florida. Now you should continue finishing the job in Florida. And I'm telling you that in Florida, the mood is very much, we don't want Ron DeSantis going to Washington.
Well, he hasn't removed himself from consideration at this point, and that may just simply be, a matter of it gives him more leverage to be considered a presidential candidate than to just take himself out of the race.
Right.
My thought about the next election would be that whoever gets elected is going to just inherit the most grotesque economic situation imaginable and the most grotesque political situation. And
I would wish on Kamala Harris, if you want my honest opinion.
Well, that would fit into my kind of ongoing general theory of what's happening, which is that the federal government becomes increasingly impotent and unable to discharge its obligations. and loses power as a result and loses legitimacy. And then in the vacuum of that legitimacy, the various regions and states have to seriously consider, autarky.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's where we're headed. And I think that, and I just, my the impassioned plea I make to everybody is to understand that process is going to happen regardless of what we want or do not want. The United States is a 50-state compact is too big. I think argument, it's like China's too big, Russia's too big to govern, China's too big to govern in its current form. In so many ways, India is too big to govern in its form. And certainly the European Union is too big to govern in its own.
I would argue that everything that's organized at the giant scale is too big to run, whether it's a corporation or Michigan State University or the United States government. They're all too big.
Ages ago, I wrote a big article about the fallacy of bigness. That bigness as a concept is the problem, and that there are very few things in nature that survive as big things.
And when they do come along, like the giant land mammals of the Asian steppes from the last geological period, it generally marks the end of the line for them. That's when they go extinct. That's when large organisms and large systems go extinct, when they've exceeded their scale.
Because they're dependent upon a very sophisticated, for lack of a better term, supply chain or ecosystem. Well, it's the ecosystem, but in economic terms, and politics is downstream of economics, and in this case, supply chains are the analogy for a sophisticated ecosystem. And we have a very sophisticated ecosystem of commerce around the world. Globalism is dying, so therefore these big organizations, Russia, the United States, even Canada, for Christ's sake, I mean, they're all too big for their own good. And so now the question is, those things are being torn apart by forces of decentralization. They're being torn apart in every way. The question is, are you going to allow your home to be, the terms of that dissolution to be set by outside factors, by outside players trying to save themselves because they think that they can run the table and create the ultimate in big thing. Remember, China's not talking about taking over the world. The Russians aren't talking about taking over the world. The only people talking about taking over the entire fucking world are the neoconservatives and the bureaucrats. That's it. Everybody else is talking about, hey, that's enough. We don't need to do this anymore. Like China's in post-imperial I think in many ways. The Russians are clearly post-imperial. The Brits refuse to give up the idea of being post-imperial, and they keep using everybody else as their fucking proxies, those pricks.
Well, the WEF doesn't have an army. They don't have a legislature.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
they have a legislature in the European Union. They have an army in the United States.
Well, those are their proxies, but the WEF itself doesn't have anything.
Right.
And that's
why they're going to fail.
Everything that it represents is actually counter to the trend that we're describing, which is decentralization and relocalization and downscaling.
I agree.
And so it seems to me very improbable that any of the goals of the WEF are even remotely achievable under any circumstances.
No, I agree, Jim. Completely. I've always said this, but that doesn't mean that their solipsism and their narcissism and their psychopathology isn't still going to be, they're going to try and express it as maximally as possible.
Yeah, so what you're saying,
rather burn the fucking world down than stop.
Okay, so they simply are intending to cause the world an enormous amount of trouble.
Right.
Like I said, we know that they're all going to,
the Joker from the Dark Knight.
We know that they're all going to be in that one building on January 24th.
God damn it.
Well, just saying,
My podcast is so close to getting bigger and becoming successful.
People who want to burn down the world.
You guys were sent from the WEF to fucking spike my growth. Let's go on and
No.
call for
You can
violence.
always edit this, Tommy. You are
No, not that. I'm not a cuck. It goes up. We lost Dave today. All right, we're not backing down. Dave tried to save the union by himself with a couple
That's right.
Boston Terriers.
We should honor his sacrifice without a
His
doubt.
sacrifice. He was shot 36
Dave,
times.
thank you for your service. Now,
Are you going to be pleased, Tommy, when the news gets out that Dave Collum was shot on the Capitol steps today, and
Well,
it's
that will
all
mean
over
that
the
I'm
all
more
press?
That will mean that I'm more powerful than I ever thought I was. I will be.
So what
so
kind of a
big.
narcissistic psychopath are you?
I will fucking take over the world. I'll make Klaus
good.
Schwab look like.
Oh, I figured that out about Tommy the first time I met him. I'm like,
Oh yeah, I'll
this guy's a hoot, but
yeah.
dude, I'm not letting him near my daughter.
No, absolutely not. Or your goats. Yeah,
Oh
but
my goats.
yeah,
You fuck one goat. Like,
yeah. You fuck one goat, and that's all you're known for. I kind of think that, and it's kind of like a bullshit take because it requires no backing up, and it's so grandiose. But I really do feel like we're on the edge of almost speciation. We're like becoming a new thing. And I don't mean all of us. I mean, often when one thing takes ahead, everything else dies. But I can only imagine it's like looking at like all the different types of like pre-humans, like Cro-Magnons, Neanderthals, and
Zinjanthropus.
yeah, well, we're looking at all these things, and then it's like, well, I mean, who's gonna win? Who's gonna, control this area? And it's like all of a sudden the agricultural revolution starts, or someone stands up right, or they use the opposable thumb, or I feel like we're just on this edge of, I don't know if it's going to be something quote unquote smaller, like the development of the printing press or flight or, electromagnetic communication, or if it's going to be something entirely different, like the first tadpole walking on land. But when it looks like there is no viable path for anything to win and go forward, and we're talking about like the bigness,
right.
and I feel like we're not to be some like shitty Hallmark card, but it's the caterpillar building the cocoon.
Well,
And
there's an alternative to that. I think
thermonuclear holocaust.
no, it's called a
Yeah.
timeout. And in this case, it's going to be a timeout from what we've considered to be progress over the last couple of hundred years, namely and especially technological progress. Whenever I hear these, insane ideas, transhuman ideas emanating from the likes of Yuval Harari and the WEF, I'm thinking, okay, well, that's an interesting theory, but how are you going to make that happen if there's no electric grid for you to plug all your shit into?
Right. And you've made energy security so ridiculous.
So tenuous.
It's a very powerful argument, and you're both saying things that are really important. One of the things I've been, the counter argument to that is, AI is progressing, or at least in some ways it's progressing so damn quickly that it could get really scary really quick, and we could wind up with a completely an unsolvable burden that the WEF is actually correct about, which is that there's an unsolvable burden of too many friggin' people that don't have jobs, and how are we going to deal with them?
They might not be wrong.
I'm not making their argument for them,
sure.
but it's because it's anti-human, it's disgusting, it's all of these things, right? But there's a cycle. I just saw I just posted a meme on my Twitter feed that I got from my people the other day. It was the cycle of AI, right? We research AI, then we perfect AI, then AI perfects itself, then AI gets rid of us, and then the sun burps and takes out AI, and then we worship the sun god. Right, that's the progression of you think, and this is exactly
so it all comes back to just worship the sun,
right? And we go back to worshiping the sun because the sun granted us our friggin' freedom from our own from our own hubris.
Yeah, well,
I would imagine two trends happening at the same time.
Why doesn't AI just build a Faraday cage and survive the burp?
Oh, Tommy, the kind of burp that's potentially coming with the magnetic field as weak as it is right now. Fuck your Faraday cage, dude.
Okay. Would just butt fuck your Faraday
when the
cage.
ground itself becomes electrified from the ground from underneath, and it doesn't matter what's coming from from the sun. Now you got to be more worried about what comes around the Faraday cage and it comes up underneath. Like,
so I'm the 18-year-old saying, I don't get it. I used a condom. And it's like, bro.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. I got you.
Life finds a way, you know.
Life finds a way. I got you. Well, yeah, I think there is something to kind of look at where it's like just acknowledge that like we're already dead, right? And I mean that like, even the top 1% is, if we're talking about like transhumanism and jumping into the next whatever period of life, be it carbon based or silicon based, I mean, maybe the top 5 wealthiest, most intelligent people might manage to merge with machine, but we're all done. It's not even Titanic in the lifeboats. There's 2 lifeboats and we're on the Titanic. Like, it's already fucked. And so if you can look at it like that, it almost allows you to look at it a little more in a little more of a detached manner, right? You look at like you look like right now I'm reading Upton Sinclair's The Jungle, and it's like, these like guys coming over from Lithuania, and it's, if best case scenario, you're earning 50 cents an hour and they're using the knife to cut the pigs, and it's like if you cut your hand you're pretty much fucked because you get blood poisoning, and they're like smoking cigarettes and drinking, and they know they're dead, but their logic is like they're not surviving. They're trying to make a better life for their kids, and they're so detached. They're like, I'm not making it past 40. They say the 40-year-olds look like 80-year-olds. And so they just start to act in a way of like, I'm not surviving. My wife is going to remarry, but how can I make the best thing for my wife and kids? And I'm going to go work at this job where I have to be there at 6 a.m. You're just boozing and smoking all day. You're probably going to die from blood poisoning. It allows you to be a little more detached. So I think that it's not that we're making the case for the World Economic Forum so much as like, none of us are making the cut for the Starship or the merging with the machine. So because of that, it kind of allows you to look at our quote unquote kids, the survival of the human race, a little more objectively and a little more detached. And it's not condoning it because they are anti-human fucks, but it allows you to look at it a little less emotionally. And it's like, are there too many people? Right. And your knee-jerk reaction is like that's genocidal. Like, I get that. But we're already done. We're going down to Titanic. So let's have an actual rational discussion about which kids are we going to put on the lifeboats.
That's the problem.
Well, let me just.
I don't believe that.
Okay. Why not?
I just don't believe that. I believe that technology always solves those problems. I think
so do I.
Yeah,
By the way, so do I.
But that's their argument. Their argument is that it's just mouthless because they've got bad math. Everything, all of humanity's problems can be solved with stop applying math badly.
It's always energy density and technology. We always make it.
No, it's all the single variable, single factor analysis. Push the slider on the Excel spreadsheet all on one variable to AIDA, and then go, oh my God! Like, yeah, unfortunately, life is a 60 or 70 different simultaneous set of differential equations to solve. Oh, by the way, you can't do it. Like, that's the problem. Like, there's a lot of wisdom in the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. And I've always said this. Like, the minute I sat down and studied the basics of quantum mechanics, and we got down to deriving Heisenberg's uncertainty principle through the Schrodinger equation, and realized that, yeah, we can't even solve for the helium atom, for the position of momentum of 2 electrons simultaneously in a helium atom. We don't know shit about the universe. And then we start to think about exactly how that math itself is a very incomplete and it's an incomplete language to describe the universe. It's an inadequate language to describe the universe. And this is where you have to allow for your own intelligence and your own version of reality that you think you see. You have to always allow for the fact that you're probably wrong.
Could be wrong.
Someone else has a solution to this problem that you can't see, and you have to submit to that humility. And if you're not willing to submit to that humility, you get yourself a God complex where you're going, yeah, there's too many fucking people.
I got you. So yeah, you're going.
That's where they're wrong, Tommy.
So okay, I got you. I'm picking up what you're
fundamentally,
saying.
I came to this conclusion of like at 21, trying to figure out, I was raised Catholic, but I never really stuck, right? Well, some of it stuck, obviously, because I can't help that. But there's that, but then ask yourself, well, are you religious? Well, are you spiritual? Yeah. No, I'll tell you what I am. I'm just smart enough to know that I don't know a fucking thing about how anything works, and the universe is far more interesting than any of us think it is. And we should embrace that as opposed to, trying to control it.
Isn't there some quote? It's like the universe is under no obligation to make sense to you.
Exactly. Oh, that's a great quote. I've never heard that before.
But I always think of that like, or it's like another thing, like, fiction has to make sense. Like reality is under no such constraints. Like we look at things and we're like, how's Batman gonna win? And it's like, well, we're using our rational mind. Versus if you wrote out like the human,
this is also part of the problem of what we do, what Jim does, what I do, what you do, and
what Dave did.
Presumably 90% of you, the guests on your podcast, was just trying to make sense of and trying to create stories.
Yeah.
That we can then, and narratives when there aren't really narratives there. And
well, here's a narrative. Here's a narrative that's not inconsistent, I don't think, with what Tom Luongo is saying. But I think it is different from what you expressed a few minutes ago. The idea that there's some kind of opposition between the population situation and what people will do if AI takes over all of the useful occupations in the world. Okay, and I think what is actually going to happen is simply this: first of all, the human lifespan implies that there's going to be natural attrition one way or another to the population, because a generation at best will last about 80 years, and and some generations do better than other generations, and sometimes they do really poorly. And we're encountering a situation where there may be more than one generation, maybe all the generations now living will do poorly in that period of time. The winter of the fourth turning, or whatever we want to call it.
Right.
So then the question is, will there be anything useful for people to do? And I think that what will happen is that there will be, on the one hand, the population will fall probably pretty severely from the usual suspects, starvation, famine, war, pestilence, etc. But at the same time, a lot of positions are going to open for people to make themselves useful, because I think that we're going to see attrition in technology as well, and especially in energy and in one of the products of energy, which is electric power.
Right.
And
I can't.
And so the bottom line for me is that basically, whatever number of people are going to be left are going to be essentially preoccupied with food production and the activities that support it.
And that means, there's going to now we're going to go right back to needing more people, because the technology is not going to be there to support the supply chains for this weird version of the future where we all have to eat bugs and eat fake meat. Yeah. And
but we're not going to get a whole lot of more people in the kind of economy I'm describing, which is not, we have lived through this 200, well, we haven't lived through it all. We've lived through a large portion of this 250-year period of a turbo industrial economy that produces immense amounts of wealth and capital. One of the problems associated with that is that the capital that we did produce is subject to deteriorating.
Yeah, well, everything is beaten the depreciation curve, or in metallurgy, trying to beat the T-naught curve, which is the eutectic between liquid and solid, or liquid doing a phase change. You're always trying to beat the T-naught curve in order to create a new and interesting crystal structure, or at the very least to maintain the state that you're currently in. Right. Just flashing back to my days as a when I was when I did this stuff for a living, and I can see this from multiple from multiple different ways, and you can't beat the physics. You can't beat, you can't beat any of this stuff. So, but that doesn't mean that it's like everything else. With, as you were saying, Jim, the way to put this, another way to put it is that with every new stressor that comes, it creates a new opportunity for something else, and and this is where, again, people like Harari and others who have this Malthusian single variable thing, and they say, well, this is the dominant variable and everything else doesn't matter. Like, really? Have you really gone through and like look through at all the potential variables that bear on your particular experiment or your particular system? Do you really think you have them all mapped out? Do you really think you have, growth functions for those things? And do you really think you've done that math? Because I can tell you right now, dude, you haven't. Especially a guy like Harari, he's like the ultimate version of the overeducated fucking midwit. Like, seriously, the guy's not even all that fucking smart. He's the worst kind of smart. You remember the line from When Harry Met Sally? Well, you're the worst kind. You're high maintenance, but you think you're low maintenance. Well, this guy's the worst kind of intellectual. He thinks he's smart, but he's actually a moron.
He's not smart enough to know he's not smart. Like, that's
right. He's not smart enough to know that he's not a smart guy.
That's the realization when you've read enough, learned enough, and you go, oh, I have no idea what this whole thing is. This system is so much greater than my grasping. That's
and dude, it's like, this is the part that drives me nuts with these fucking people. It's like, that shouldn't like scare you. That should make you go, dude, magic.
There's so much more.
Maybe fucking real. I get to still be a kid when I get older. Like,
but it is
65 and still be an overgrown manlet, but still like they deal with all of my adult responsibilities. I get to be both things at the same time.
You still get to be
a cool world.
You still get to be in awe at the magic and potential of the universe. You're like, who knows what's next? Like, who fucking knows? Like, if we're on the edge of the next germ theory, or discovering the atomic structure, or finding out that the Earth isn't flat. Like, we could be right on the edge of that. We could be right on the edge of that, where your entire world shifts and you enter a new age. But we're kind of just in this mindset of like, wasn't there that quote in like 1901? It's like the only thing left to do is fine tune measurements because we figured out all of science.
Yeah,
figured everything out.
Meanwhile, these assholes were dying at like 40 and walking around in 3-piece suits and Model Ts. Like, we'll
never need more than 640K RAM.
Yeah, and but nonetheless, we still are kind of at this point where, like, well, we think about how certain you have to be in your understanding of the universe to then justify like killing off the majority of the population. Like, you have to be so concrete. Like, you don't jump out of a plane unless you're certain the parachute. They're like, the science is settled. We got to wipe out everyone. Like, you're pretty confident, man.
And we call those people villains.
Yeah.
That's who what the fuck Thanos was.
Yeah.
I bring this shit up all the time. Like, Thanos was wrong. And really, all those fucking Marvel movies were doing was to try and justify and make him human. That's the disgusting part about all this. And like, the millennials all lapped it up. I'm like, fuck's wrong with you? Like, that guy's a jackass. Like, this is all you got? This is the best story you could have told? This is the great story of all time. Well, yeah, okay, but were you? And then even better than that, what did you learn from this lesson? Oh, that we can go back in time and beat him? What? How about, no, you fucked up because you sat on your asses watching stupid fucking movies and not actually getting the fucking lessons before we got to Thanos.
What do you think is a lesson for the people of the USA at this moment, especially in this part of the COVID-19 story and vaccine story?
Don't believe anything anyone over 30 fucking tells you. We're right back to the 1970s. Don't trust anybody over 30. Like, I'm now flashing back to Charlton Heston and the Planet of the Apes. Like, Lucius, don't trust anybody over 30.
Doesn't it amaze you? Doesn't the sheer weight and amount of dishonesty just blow your mind?
It does. No, I mean, it does and it doesn't. Like, every time I think I've like figured out just how evil and disgusting these people are, they still
Mhm.
they still surprise me. And I
Yeah.
guess that makes me a Pollyanna. I go on. One of my patrons actually is honestly accusing me of being a glass half full, two half full, and he's just honestly going through it. And I don't begrudge him that perspective. It's actually fair. It's actually a fair criticism. Like, and I'll tell you right now, like I have to. I've got to believe that we're gonna like that as a people, we're gonna like look at this eventually wake up, even if the hour is really late. But eventually, even Gollum's gonna do the right thing in the end.
Yeah.
Right. Even if he does it for the wrong reasons. I don't give a
Yeah.
shit. I don't need it to be the right reasons.
Yeah. No, I'm not. I talk about it all the time. I talk about that all the time as well. Is I have to look at it optimistically because I'll blow my fucking head off if I don't.
What's the
So like
point?
it's not. It's a very selfish reason, but I have to look at it optimistically. But
I'm gonna
yeah,
go dark for a second. I gotta take this phone call from my wife.
yeah, you're good. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it can't get better. I guess I don't know. When I think about how like sometimes I think I have such a good grasp on the world, and then
Mhm.
I realize just how incompetent I am. I try to apply that to like the people we think are in charge. Like we think there's just a group of people that are pulling all the strings. They've got all the answers,
Mhm.
but like, you know, they still put their pants on backwards by accident.
Sure.
I think that leaves wiggle room. That leaves wiggle room in like the explanation. I think in our minds we have to let it work out. And again, if it's something like tic-tac-toe, where you can see all the variables and you're not going to win, so you never win. But when it is something so complex, like even if it seems unrelated, like Davos can't win. Why? Because like we still don't know what dark energy is. Regardless of what it is, what it means is there's still a lotto ticket you haven't scratched off. And so when we don't know what like 93% of the universe is, to me that still means, well, like why that's still 93% of like all options that we haven't even looked at yet. So like why can't it work?
It's a good metaphor, Tommy. Unfortunately, dark energy is just bullshit, and that we can account for that all that mass. We just refuse to, but the dominant science refuses to accept that it's a magnetic electric universe.
Oh, well, all right.
That's part of, but that's a different
Well, all right. Well, never mind. Then we're
discussion.
fucked.
But it's still a nice metaphor. I don't mean to, but you're absolutely right in the sentiment. The sentiment is absolutely correct.
But yeah,
So
like when you're like watching like a movie or something, and it's like it seems like it's over, but you're watching it on like your phone. You're not in a movie theater, and you look at your phone and you look at it, and like the scroller is only like 3/4 of the way through, and you're like, there's still 25% of the movie. Like something clearly is happening. It's not like you're at the last millimeter of the video bar and the credits are about to roll. You're like, oh, I guess the bad guys won. It's when you look at it and you're like, we're not finished. Something's still gonna happen. I guess that's how I look at it. Is like there still seems to be so many options. Like,
nothing ever ends.
yeah,
Right?
I
Well,
mean,
history doesn't end. Like this is the thing that's remember what's the core of Marxism in the dialectic, right? Is that history is already written, that they've already figured everything out,
Mhm.
and we're just playing everything out. And that so everybody's on autopilot, just like the end of capitalism, the end of this, the end of history, and history is written. It's in the dialectic. And like, really? Okay. Like, and then I go back to Watchmen, and I think Dr. Manhattan,
nothing ends,
and oh no,
Adrian.
nothing
Nothing
ever
ever
ends,
ends.
Adrian. Like, and we
Nothing
just keep
ever
going on,
ends.
and it's
Yeah.
the next cycle. And
And things are always tremendously surprising. For
yes,
someone like me who I was a college student during the heart of the hippie revolution. I was in college from 1966 to 71,
That's
5-year
awesome.
plan. And everything that people on the left believed in then is now diametrically the opposite of what the left believes in now.
right.
Especially things like personal liberty,
That's
free speech,
like,
you know,
why
all of
can't
the
we?
supporting the status quo, supporting police state tyranny. These are things that the left is now wholeheartedly in favor of, and it would have been inconceivable in 1968 for to imagine the left being in favor of those things. But history in that sense has flipped completely in my lifetime, and produced the strangest outcomes. So I guess, Tom, this is basically consistent with your idea that the universe is stranger than we can imagine.
Yeah.
And history is stranger than we can imagine. People step forward into these roles. And, another thing that's really characteristic of our time is that we're in this tremendous and amazing vacuum of leadership.
Yes.
And it comes out of a culture that is unable to form a coherent consensus about anything. And then what happens, of course, is that, a figure comes forward and is actually able to make that consensus gel or go through a phase change to solidify very quickly. And, you get a situation like the French Revolution, where you're going from the Jacobins in one moment into a period of drift, between 1894 and the late 90s. And, along comes this fairly unassuming artillery officer from Corsica, who puts down a mob in Paris with a couple of cannons and some grape shot. And the next thing you know, everybody is turning to him and saying, he's the guy. He's the guy. And what kind of a guy is he? Well, turns out he's a monarch. Nobody knows it yet. Nobody knows yet that he's an emperor. But, at the tail end of the French Revolution, which is fought for, democracy, equality, fraternity, and all that, what do you get? You get an emperor. And everybody's really happy with it. Why? Because it's, they've now got a solid consensus about reality. And they've got some sense of security. And, that they're living in a stable society for a change.
Yep.
So I think people in America are going to get, I think, and a huge number of people are already sick and tired of simply of this amazing cultural instability and having idiotic, absurd propositions thrown in your face, like the idea that there's anything good about a drag queen story hour. I mean, basically,
that men can get pregnant or any of this other stuff.
Like, I mean, what you're basically seeing is a demonstration of mental illness.
Yes.
And everybody knows that it's mental illness. Nobody's being fooled about it. And but nobody's allowed to say it because the consensus is so fractured that you're going to be punished possibly if you say it. But, sooner or later, the consensus is going to reform, and we'll be able to identify stuff like that for what it is. And, then we'll go forward and we'll discover some things like, we're going to have to, we're going to have to produce food different ways. We're going to have to do commerce differently than we've done it. A lot of these institutions that we take to be part of the, the pantheon of American icons, they're going to be dethroned. Just because Walmart's been with us for 30 years or whatever it is, doesn't mean that it's a permanent installation in the human condition. And, it'll go away, and everything like it, and everything on the same scale as it. Even Amazon is going to go away. My thought about Amazon is pretty simple, and I've had the same thought for a number of years, which is simply that, without a viable trucking industry, there's no Amazon.
Right.
And the trucking industry happens to be a very fragile system at the moment, and has been for a while, and is cruising for a bruising.
Agreed. It's really fascinating. While I've been sitting here listening to Jim, and Jim, that was fantastic. I really, I couldn't have said it better. It's interesting, actually, when you think about this, and poor Dave, that he's dead, bleeding out on the Capitol
Rest in
step.
peace.
But because of that, we actually have balance in that we don't have an overrepresentation of the older generation. We have a millennial, we have high Gen X, myself, and we have
Mr. Boomer.
Mr. Boomer. But
Interestingly
enough, how we've all come full circle and into a different and come to a lot of the same conclusions about things, just seeing things from slightly different perspectives. And so I find that, and that's, again, one of these things where we're going to have to, I make fun of millennials all the time, and make fun of boomers all the time. But at the same time, I'm also hoping that everybody comes to that realization that we do need a new consensus that is something, constructive as opposed to destructive, and to just, yes, call it out. That's mental illness. And that's a great, that's exactly the way I say it, which is that it is mental illness. And you know, and like your need for therapy is not my problem. It's your problem. And you know, if I had investment advice for anybody other than gold, goats, and guns right now, it would be, oh, I would buy, you know, I would definitely buy into a SPAC or a new IPO in psychotherapy, like, you know, like a psychotherapy collective that decided to go public, like, because we desperately need that, and we desperately need good ones, right?
Yeah. And psychotherapy is in a very shocking and surprising new state of low disrepute.
Right.
You know, it's almost impossible to find a head shrinker that will even talk to you, because all they want to do is medicate you. And at the low end of it, in the social services and the you know, the hospital MHUs and places like that, they simply don't offer anything anymore. You know, they don't want to talk to people who are disturbed. They don't want to really help.
Well, here's an interesting thing I think about it, right? Go look at excuse me, look at the rise of life coaching, look at the rise of what you're seeing on the internet. Go to YouTube and see what YouTube's real value is at this point. It's in some form of therapy or another.
Yeah,
it's everywhere. And you know, I mean, it's everywhere. It's people trying desperately to make sense of what's going on, and that stuff. And then on top of that, then you go look at things like the primitive skills channels that have got millions of viewers, of guys out in the Vietnamese jungle just, you know, making charcoal and, you know, sluiceways and, you know, like, you know, and cabins and shit. And you're like, yeah, this is like, there's this desperate need for authenticity, for return to something constructive, for return to reality, for return to, you know, some level of authenticity is really the best word for it. And, you know, the fake culture is rapidly, you know, just eating itself. And what's interesting is during this entire conversation this afternoon, while we were talking about, oh, well, you know, things are getting bad and things are terrible, and yeah, we're all fucked, and, you know, we're all, as Tommy was saying earlier, we're all dead. Well, you know, got news for you. The Russians have already gone through this as a society. The people who went through that period in the 1990s are now the people taking political power today, or moving into positions of political power and economic power in Russia today, right? That hard generation. It's a different cycle that they have than we have here in the United States, but they're in that mode right now. And I think that, you know, it's, you know, and I think many of us here in the US and in the West sense that, and are actually looking at that going, yeah, and it makes sense why so many people in the United States find Putin, you know, the dissidents in the United States, the early adopters of the new constructive reality, are so interested and fascinated by Putin. And it's not because he's abjectly brilliant about everything, or hasn't made mistakes, or this, that, or anything else, or is even the man he portrays himself to be, right? You can make all of those arguments on Putin, but you can also make the argument that he is just doing exactly what is demanded of him by the, you know, by the new consensus that has now forming in Russia. And he better, and I was chatting with Daniel Osterlin the other day. I was on his show, and it hasn't come out yet, but he was reminding me that, like, the Russian state doesn't really have the backing of the people in the way that we might think. Like, the Russian state, very, very low. Their approval of Putin, fine. Their approval of the state, no, because there's still a dichotomy between how or still a divide between how they view the functioning of their state, and the man, you know, trying to, you know, protect them at the top of the dysfunctional pyramid. And well, we don't even have that guy right now.
Putin has one virtue that is lacking everywhere else in the world right now, which is he's the one political figure who really appears to mean what he says and say what he means.
Right.
And nobody else does. It's a very simple thing, but it's a very powerful thing.
It is. It's a very powerful thing. I think Viktor Orban has that same that same gravitas in Italy, in Hungary. And I think that Georgia Meloni, if she, she's in a much more tenuous situation than either of those two men. In Italy, I think she has the opportunity to rise to that state in Italy. And if she does, then it's going to be very interesting going forward. I'm running up against my time where I'm going to have to run, guys. I love this conversation. I'd hate to cut it off or anything.
I do want to say
one of these soon.
I do want to say I think that that is exactly the same quality that Ron DeSantis is exhibiting, and it's one of the reasons that people are so drawn to him.
Yeah, I agree, and I just think that I just don't want Ron to peak too early into the wrong role. And that's a very difficult thing to do, and we're going to watch to see whether or not his ego is, capable of keeping it in his pants.
And there are actually some other figures out there who could make a run. I don't think that the Republican bench is as bad as quite as bad as you say. I think that
maybe not. I'm hoping that somebody, right. When I was talking to Alexander Mercouris about the plight of the UK and Oliver Cromwell, and I kept saying for a while, one of my talking points was, you guys need an Oliver Cromwell moment. And Alex reminded me, oh, by the way, Oliver Cromwell was nobody before he became Oliver Cromwell. And so, is there somebody gonna step up? Are we gonna find? Or is that gonna happen? I'd love to see it. And again, the universe is far more interesting. And when people and systems are put under the kinds of pressure that they're under right now, that's when catastrophic mutations occur, and that's when really interesting shit happens.
Two very quick points. One, a quote from Dr. Vince Houghton, who I've had on here before. He wrote the book Nuking the Moon. He said necessity is the mother of invention, but desperation is the drunk uncle who calls you on your birthday and asks you for $5. I think that's what we're going to see, is we're going to see something wild come out of it. And also, in terms of the universe not making sense, 2 days ago or 3 days ago, I interviewed Judith Ferry Baker. She's 79. She dated Lee Harvey Oswald. And she's on Twitter, and she asked me why I wasn't. I said, I haven't been restored yet. I've been banned, but everyone else has been restored. And so she tweeted, she's been tweeting like, please get Tommy Carrigan back on Twitter. But in terms of the universe not needing to make sense to you, 4 days into the new year, Lee Harvey Oswald's ex-girlfriend is out campaigning for me to be back on Twitter. The universe is under no obligation to make any sense. It is under no obligation to make any fucking sense. So that's kind of how I look at it, is like, dude, that was 4 days into the new year. Oh, we got 361 or 359 left. Like, I'm not making any definitive takes. So
and I fully expect Dave Collum to rise from the dead.
Me too.
And off the Capitol steps. Technology is amazing.
Incredible.
Anything can happen. So
we have the technology.
When he does, it'll be great to do it
again.
Ask Dave what the afterlife is like.
Yeah. Poor Dave.
And we can get him on with DeMar Hamel, who's Apparently also coming back a little bit.
Yep.
We had
all right, guys. I got to run.
All right.
Bye.
Go James Kunstler, RIP Div Column. Much love, everybody. Take care. Thank you so much.